It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160 and 101.1 FM, 12 minutes after 8 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. And he is Indiana County District Attorney Pat Dougherty, joining us live and on Facebook Live this morning. Good
Wonderful.
morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Wonderful. It's good to have you in the studio with us.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd ask you to come in and talk with us a little bit about, we had an incident last night. We had this interview arranged before the incident yesterday.
Right.
But it had to do with the threat of school violence. We've had school administrators here on the station in the last couple of weeks talking about the start of school year and security measures. Penn's Manor school year doesn't start till tomorrow because they're instituting new security measures.
Right.
Blairsville incident yesterday, I thought it was handled just great. They did a fine job there.
Well, we've been training and working and talking about these scenarios, and I hate to say it, but these scenarios don't shock us anymore. And that's really a sad commentary on what we're facing and when we send our kids to school. But the administrators handled it properly. The law enforcement handled it properly, and they're working together in a coordinated manner now to ensure not only that the students are safe, but that the individual who makes these threats is getting proper evaluations, making sure that if there's a mental health need, we're getting that addressed, and really trying to do it as a whole system rather than just individual agencies.
That heightened awareness certainly is welcome. Unfortunately, it's also necessary because of the number of incidents that there have been in recent years. And I'm sure that you are impressed, as I am, with the measures these schools are taking, not only in physical things, metal detectors and armed guards in many cases, but just in the overall training and awareness of what could be a potential problem area. Teachers and students seem to be really keen to it.
Yeah, anytime you're in a building, you have to have that awareness. And I think teachers and administrators and even students now all across the country have been saying, we need to know what to do in certain situations. So they've really embraced the training. They've taken it very seriously. And the school districts have responded in kind by providing the training, providing the resources, doing what they can do within their financial limitations to really provide a safe environment.
We're talking with Indiana County District Attorney Pat Dougherty. The young man involved yesterday, or allegedly involved yesterday, 15 years old, and not a student at Blairsville High School. His case, other cases, a lot of times these threats are originating from young people, juveniles.
Right.
And there is a separate juvenile justice system that operates away from the adult justice system.
Right.
We call it juvenile probation in Indiana County.
Yeah.
Explain that system.
Well, basically, it's... the number one goal of juvenile court is rehabilitation, whereas adult court is punishment. We want to try to get to children early in their lives if they exhibit these type of behaviors. And it could be anything from these type of threats to, assault, to drug addiction, you name it, we see it. Anything you would see in society, we see it in the juvenile court system. But basically the way it works is it's the first step. They bring the child in to meet with a representative from juvenile probation. And we have a team of people that work in juvenile probation that have been there a long time, that work really hard with these kids to try to get them on the right track. And it's very much a progressive system. And what I mean by that, think of like an employment issue. Somebody gets in trouble at work, you have progressive discipline. Mm-hmm. Or at home, you have progressive discipline. Hey, don't do that or you'll get this punishment. If they continue to do it, they get a more severe punishment. And that's basically the way the juvenile system works. The first step is try to just get them on track. Maybe they never even come into a courtroom. They meet with the probation department. They can do what's called an informal adjustment. And that basically is, put them on supervision for a short period of time. If they comply with those terms and conditions and do everything they're supposed to, they get relieved from their obligations moving forward. Now, if it's a more serious case or it's a repeat offense, then now they're going to end up in front of the court. We have juvenile court roughly once a month. Judge Martin is the main judge that handles that. And we work as a team, essentially, juvenile probation, my office, Tom Kaufman is a juvenile defender, so he represents the juveniles, and we meet, and then depending on what their needs are. If it's a drug and alcohol situation, maybe they need to be sent to a facility to get clean. Mm-hmm. If it's anger management, we can get them in those type of classes. But the goal is not to remove kids from the home unless we absolutely have to.
Yeah. Some of these offenders are kids who never had the advantages that most kids do from the moment they're born. Some kids are born to parents who have had drug problems themselves, and that impacts the development of their brains. That has to be a part of what you do as well, that evaluation process.
Yeah, and it's a whole systemic review of these children. We're not going to just throw a kid aside because he got into some trouble as an early teen or even a late teen. We want to get them the help so they can move on and be productive citizens. Mm-hmm. And that the whole societal issues, you got to take them into account. You can't just ignore them. And I'll say this, it's not just kids from those homes. It's kids from great homes with parents that bust their tails to try to make their kids have the right advantages and the right decisions, but they still can end up in trouble. And, as we know, and you and I have talked many times about the drug issue, it knows no socioeconomic boundaries.
Yeah.
So, it's really a challenge, but it does help when you have the parents that are willing to be involved in the process and actually help instead of just simply blindly defend their children.
We're talking with Indiana County District Attorney Pat Dougherty, and particularly about juveniles, when juveniles get into trouble. We started this conversation talking about the school threats,
right,
and how these schools are addressing those problems. Within the schools, sometimes there are incidents which require the state police to come and to bust up a fight, or a student has been found with something that they should not have. Weapons in schools, that's something else. And parents need to understand that what their kids are taking to school might be a weapon that they don't even know is a weapon.
Sure. And that's, make sure you review the student handbook for every school district. Every school district's a little bit different. I've always said if you have a question, ask ahead of time. Mm-hmm. It could be something as innocent as, I used to carry a Swiss Army knife every day, and that would be considered a weapon now.
We used to take our hunting rifles in the trunks of our cars.
Right, absolutely. And, it could be an innocent thing. Maybe you were using the hunting example. You and your family were out hunting, and you take the car the next day, and there's a rifle, there's a knife to gut the deer, whatever it is, mm-hmm. and that's in the vehicle. If it gets, if your vehicle gets searched that day and you're the unlucky one, or somebody sees it walking by as you're grabbing your book bag out, that can lead to some serious consequences. And I understand it. Excuse me. I understand the need, but we also, unfortunately, we have to draw that line now, because we can't have interpretations like we used to be able to do.
Yeah, we're talking schools here. IUP certainly is a school, but that is a whole separate category there.
Yeah.
At IUP, you have students who are adults, recognized adults, legal adults. You also have those who have just graduated from high school, and they're still very young.
Right.
And it's not a case of I'm a high school student in May, and now I'm a full-blown adult in September when I start college at IUP.
Right.
You have to deal with the issues on campus as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, IUP really has done a great job over the last several years trying to step up their education efforts for their incoming freshmen, so that they understand what role alcohol plays. This is a lot of these kids, it's their first time ever away from mom and dad, mm-hmm. living on their own. And so, they're presented with different opportunities and different exposures to things, and not having mom and dad with their thumb on them all the time, can lead kids to make interesting, if not bad choices. Yeah. And, sometimes you survive those bad choices, and sometimes there's consequences that come along with those. So, it's really seeing that maturity or lack thereof in certain instances. We've all seen the effects of alcohol and what drugs can do to individuals, and it really can lead individuals down the wrong path.
He's Pat Dougherty, the Indiana County District Attorney. It's interesting because IUP has its own judicial
Right.
internal mechanism for dealing with offenders.
Yes.
And in those cases, they're subject to the laws of the county,
Right.
of the state, and of IUP discipline.
Yeah, there's IUP discipline, which is wholly separate from anything we do in the county judicial system, and it can be their burden of proof is different. So you could even be acquitted in a criminal action, but still be held and sanctioned by the university.
Yeah.
It's a completely separate process. We work essentially blindly of one another. I never know what they do because it's protected by federal education laws, but and I really don't care what IUP does. That's their own system. I assume that they're going to hold their students accountable for the conduct because as we all know, IUP is a major part of our community, and we need to work with them, not against them. And hopefully they'll work with us to ensure that their students uphold the character and the conduct which we expect.
Only a minute or so left with District Attorney Pat Dougherty. I wanted to touch on one other subject with you. We're going to be talking with Representative Chris Dush on Thursday about the initiative now being undertaken in the state legislature to protect our prison guards.
Yeah.
In the past week or two, we've had many court cases come up of prisoners, inmates who have assaulted prison guards and in some cases inflicted serious injuries. I know the protection of our corrections officers is really one of the top priorities for you.
And it really has to be because, the problem is these people go into these facilities and their job is to maintain order. And when you have individuals that are in these facilities with essentially a lot of times when it's longer range sentences, they have this mindset of, well, what do I have to lose? Mm-hmm. And so we need to really make sure that we're doing a good job ensuring that they get consecutive sentences tacked on so that they understand that there is a real punishment and that we're not running these cases concurrently or at the same time with what they're already serving, because that's essentially no further punishment for the individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll talk with Representative Dush about that, but I know that's something that you feel very strongly about.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for coming in to visit with us.
Thanks for having me.
Haven't had you for a while.
No, I enjoy coming over anytime. I keep saying I want to talk to Jack about football, but he never takes me up on that.
All right. Well, you come in and you talk about football anytime. You let me know when you want to come talk IUP football, Indiana, whatever you want.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Todd.
Okay, he is the Indiana County District Attorney, Pat Dougherty. It's 8:25 in the morning. Here comes Boomer with today's morning sports.